Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome to the Austin Downbeat, bringing in our very first episode of this very new year, 2024, with I can't think of a better person to bring in and ring in this year than Nik Parr, my guest today. He's the leader of the band, the Selfless Lovers. If you've ever seen them play live, I don't know if I've ever seen a musician work as hard as Nik does, sometimes playing both the piano and the saxophone at the same time. That entire band does an amazing job of entertaining the audience from beginning to end of the show. They really know how to put on a show like the good old days. So, again, happy to ring in the new year with this conversation with one of my favorites, Mr. Nik Parr. Nik
Okay.
Parr, welcome to the show. I'm so genuinely happy to have you on. I'm a big fan.
I really appreciate you wanting to have me on your cool show. So thank you for having me. I remember when no one wanted to talk to me about my music. So doesn't seem like it was that long ago. So I really appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot because there's a lot that I'm curious about, a lot that I want to talk to. But let me just first tell you, you are so fun. Just for people, I don't know if people listen to the whole thing of these, but I just want to encourage people to go out and see you and your amazing band
Thank you.
because I see a lot of music. I'm going out late tonight, catching a couple. Um, I honestly don't think I've ever seen anyone engage as well as you do and keep the energy going and very appropriately going. It's not excessive.
Sure.
It's not gratuitous. It's so authentic. You put on such a great show, and I want to know where that comes from.
Yeah.
What drugs are you on?
What drugs am I on? Right. Am I high on life? No, I mean, I do drink a lot of coffee, so that helps.
Same.
But no, I really think that I had to develop my band's sound. We're playing a ton of shows, right? We tour a lot, but we play a
Yeah.
lot of rooms that are walk-in crowds at bars and like little venues. And you kind
Mhm.
of have to build the kind of show that someone is going to like the first time they see it. And
Yeah.
that's really what becomes the mission is like, okay, how do I make this crowd like resonate with my original songs within like 3 minutes of a show? How do I do that? You just don't have a lot of time to win people.
Yeah.
So that's why you end up with a show, and I think I've always gravitated towards bands that did that for me. So if
Mhm.
you listen to like Rolling Stones recordings from like the late 70s and stuff, you're hearing those kind of albums or like Led Zeppelin or, whatever, James Brown, Bobby Womack, these like soul guys, these are shows that are meant for clubs or like Little Richard or Jerry Lee Lewis, Elvis. These shows are meant to get a crowd in a small venue excited. And I
Mhm.
think that's kind of what happened is I started naturally gravitating towards that kind of show where it's like, all right, this one's fun. This is another cool one. All right, this one's slower, but it's groovy. Okay, this one's to, grab someone to dance with them to this one. And it kind of, you have a show where there's a prompt for every song and there's a purpose for it. And that's just because
Mhm.
I had to win crowds. I had to win them. And so the best people that are good at winning crowds, it's a lot of old school kind of performing artists. It's the old school front man. Mick Jagger is like the master of winning a crowd. And
Right.
so you start to be like, okay, what's he doing? What's Freddie Mercury doing?
Mhm.
What's Elvis doing? And thinking like that. So I try to think like that as I run a show, I guess is how I'd put it. If that's a
Yeah.
good answer. Yeah.
Well, it is what you do, and that's it turns it into rather than it feeling segmented and your songs feeling segmented, it feels
Yeah.
like it's like I'm there for an event. I'm there for the whole thing. And sometimes you
Yeah.
go see shows and it's kind of like, oh, I'm gonna go outside and talk to some people, and
Yes. Yeah.
they allow you to do that almost because that's just the flow that's sort of created. But your flow is just so different, and it's awesome to finally have you on and have you
Thanks.
articulate that for me because um you just yeah it's different. It's unlike anything that I think I've ever seen. Plus
Thank you.
I am a 70s kid and an 80s
Yeah.
kid, and I have a real soft spot for like Billy Joel and Bruce Springsteen and like
Sure.
the saxophones and the pianos, and you play them both at the same time, which is like insane.
Sure. Yeah.
how
Yeah.
does
Yeah.
how does that happen in your brain where you go, oh yeah, I'm gonna play them both at the same time?
You know, I think thanks for dropping the hint to your audience. It does happen, audience. I do play them both at the same time.
It does.
So I think a lot of the best, or maybe the best advice I've gotten is like whatever you do in music, dial it up to 11, right? If you're a songwriter kind of guy, be that it, dial it up to 11. If you're a front man, dial that up to 11. If you're a weird indie rock kind of avant-garde singer, do it at the highest level of that. And so with me, it's like, okay, we're already winning the crowd. We're already doing showmanship. We're already doing solos. Screw it. Why not play both at the same time? Like you're
Mm,
already, it's like that's the next level. You know what I mean? So it's like if I'm
yeah.
gonna play saxophone at a club, why not jump on a table and play the saxophone? You know, or
Yes.
why not jump on a table and then pour a shot and do a shot at the bar and play the saxophone? Why not? You know, it's like you might as well because you're already doing it. Same with the crowd stuff. If I'm going to do that, I might as well really do the crowd interaction. I might as well jump in the crowd. And it's just, so
Yeah.
that's kind of how I look at everything is like, okay, if we're going to do it already, we might as well do it at 11. And
Mhm.
so that's kind of what ends up happening with the show and with the writing is it kind of gets, and I, once again, I go back to bands like the Rolling Stones, but what I like is the intensity or Bruce Springsteen. You know, if he's going to do the thing with the saxophone doing a melody, shoot, build a whole show around Clarence Clemens,
Yeah.
right? Make it a thing you can sing along to. And I think that's kind of what I'm thinking about. Or the same with like audience participation and crowd work and the showmanship is like, well, if I'm going to try to win the crowd, let's give them the most exciting thing they've ever seen. What could that be? Well, it might be a guy playing the sax and the piano at the same time after just ripping up a, you know, after running into the crowd, coming back and the guitar and this and that. It's like, might as well. And I think that's
Yeah.
kind of how I look at that stuff is like, you might as well give them a show. If you're going to do it, give them a show. That's kind of how I
Yeah.
feel about it.
Is the
So,
11 a Spinal Tap reference?
you
Because,
know what's funny? I never saw that movie, but people talk about it. I've never seen it. I know on the
oh,
app, right?
Nick, you
I know.
okay, homework for Nick.
Hang out
This,
with me. I'm around.
you've
I'm
got
around.
to come and watch. Even my 13-year-old
Sure.
daughter is like obsessed with Spinal Tap.
Sure. Yeah. I know about it. I mean, but I never really watched. I've seen parts of it, but I know what you're talking about.
Yes.
And also, you mentioned a really interesting thing about the pacing of a show.
Hmm.
And this is so interesting. It's so crazy because when I get feedback from like people that are managers or agents or music industry people, they'll be like, you should really slow your show down. You should pace. And I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? Because the slow the show down, and I think like I do have some songs that are more slow, groovy songs,
Sure.
but that's meant for like dancing with somebody or being sentimental. Like it's still meant for something. I think a lot of bands, exactly what you say, they almost factor in a cigarette break into their show.
Sure.
And I'm like, why the hell would I let you leave?
Hmm.
You know, like I have you. No, I'm gonna bring you through an entire journey, and
Hmm.
we're gonna, yeah, like would I don't know. It's like would Bruce Springsteen let you leave? No,
Right.
he would command your attention. Would
Yeah.
Elvis let you leave? No, Elvis wouldn't let you leave. Would even in Austin, would Soul Man Sam let you check out mentally? Do you know Soul Man Sam?
Mm-mm.
He's great for your listeners too. He's an old dude that does he's blind and he dresses super cool and he does soul music and he's just really he drinks Hennessy and smokes cigarettes and he does like old school
I
kind of
love.
70s soul Bobby Bland like Johnny Taylor, James Brown stuff, but he's really great and he's the master of crowd work. And he
Oh,
does
I gotta
not
go see
and he
him.
does you got to come with me sometime because you'll see where I get the Nik Parr from because I used to play
Okay.
with him.
Oh,
But he
cool.
does a lot of he has a lot of are we tired? What the hell is wrong with you? Come on up. I need you to dance. It sounds like a funeral in here. I come here to play a funeral. And he does a lot of that stuff and he works the crowd. And I think I'm big on this idea of like not letting the crowd, in a good way, but like not letting them off the hook. Like,
Yeah.
no, you're gonna participate. We're gonna have a good time. And
Mhm.
I really believe in that as an entertainer. Just kind of the way I run it. So
Yeah. Do you find yourself opposite then? You know, sometimes like bookers, get I've heard I've had a few people on the show, a few bands that struggle with fitting into the certain boxes that bookers kind of want
sure.
to fit into. I think that you probably don't have that problem, but maybe is it almost reversed where you, Nick, feel like you have to be a little more choosy on where you play? Because you're giving, I think, a lot more than maybe bookers think or maybe expect. Because you really do. I can't stress enough how much
Thanks.
of a show you put on and how much of a not only a musician and artist that you are, but an entertainer. And so it's really kind of like if you sign up to come, you really are going to be watching the whole time. And
Yeah, it's an immersive show.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's very immersive and it's so fun. Do you find yourself having a little bit more control wanting to have a little bit more control over where you play? Do you have the luxury of that, number one? And do
That's
you
just a great. It's a really great question.
have that?
Look at you, killing it with the questions. You ready?
I'm all
Look at
grown
you.
up, Nick.
Look at you. You're so good. I did an interview one time where I started it, and the person was like, "So do you play the piano or that?" And I was like, "What are we doing?" It's like, look, just listen or don't, like whatever. Anyway, like, no, you don't have to. It's a great question. That's such a thing that I deal with in my mind all the time with booking shows.
Mhm.
I think one of the issues with the way music is, unless you're like an artist that's already on a major label, has management, has a guaranteed ticketed draw, is you have to play a lot of the venues that are willing to have you, unfortunately, because so many of the venues, they're calculus on the way they book. I
Mhm.
mean, we're touring a bunch of different states now. Is they go, what's your market history? What's your guaranteed draw? And so the kind of kind of places we should be playing are often not the first place that's open to me when I'm going into a new market, right?
Mhm.
Like we should basically be playing the House of Blues or something like that in
Yeah.
various places. But House of Blues is booked by Live Nation.
Yeah.
So you're kind of like, oh, okay. And so this is a really great question you lead, which is like a real show is the kind of show that people show up and actually watch and participate in. A lot of times, the first venues that are open to you as a band are bars and little nightclubs where people are there to kind of passively listen. That's
Mhm.
breweries with a stage. I mean,
Right.
and we're doing better now where I've just been touring enough where I've established my ticketed draw in a bunch of places. But this is a great thing, which is like a lot of it. It's like if you're playing my kind of show to people that are eating hamburgers and want to talk, that's a really terrible show for that. And
Mhm.
so, like,
Yeah.
we're a show for people that want to go see a show. And so
Mhm.
you're always fighting this. I'm always fighting this battle where the place that I want to play is often the club that's booked by Live Nation or C3 or something like that. And
Yeah.
so and this is an issue for a lot of independent artists is if you can't change that set to like a 3 hour kind of full night show where you're going to win a walk-in crowd, you're going to have a really hard time touring because most venues that are ticketed venues, they're not going to have you unless you're already on a major agency. If that's a good, I hope that's a good
Yeah.
answer to your
It
question, but it's
is.
like
It
the
is.
places it's kind of like the joke, like the kind of girls that like me or the kind of girls that I like don't like me kind of
Right.
joke. It's like
Right.
same with venues. The kind of venues that I want to play initially don't want to have me because they're looking for Black Joe Lewis because he's been touring for 20 years,
Right.
right? They're looking for they're looking for Joe Bonamassa or they're looking for Samantha Fish. They're looking for Chris Kingfish. Like, and it's like, okay, but you need to book me. So that's always the issue I'm dealing with is having to convince these venues that we're actually legit and we should be playing them. And until you can do that, you're stuck playing the second tier kind of venue and then winning over a crowd that you really shouldn't be playing to in the first place.
Right. Yeah.
Not in an arrogant way, just
No,
like
I
hey,
understand. No.
we shouldn't be here. What are we doing here? This is
Yeah.
dumb, but you have to suck it up and play. So I hope
Yeah.
that's a good answer.
It is. It is kind of
Yeah,
like it's that spot in the equation where I find myself wanting to solve that. Like, is there an alternative form of representation for artists like you that maybe you don't want to have a label? Maybe you love doing your stuff solo. Maybe you don't want to be
yeah,
in debt. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
totally,
Because label, that's basically what it is.
totally, yeah,
Maybe you want to still have your freedom, but you want to be vouched for and vetted so that
mm.
we can get you in with C3 and Live Nation and that kind of stuff. It's like this real missing chunk in the equation for me, because I talk
Yeah,
to a lot of people that are there's this beautiful section of musicians and you are in it where it's like you're in the ecosystem where I mean I think this is what you'll be doing for your life. You should be doing it for your whole life. I mean, this
totally,
is what you're meant to be doing.
sure,
And I would even venture to assume, like, regardless of whatever you define as winning, I already feel like you're winning, you know?
yeah,
But like not everybody cuts through and is Madonna and Cher and Prince and all that. So
sure,
it's like, can we be happy with what we're doing now? And also, can we make it easier? Can
mm,
we
mm.
get to a place where we're playing the shows that you deserve to be, the venues that you deserve to be playing, and make that easier? Um, I wish
It's
it
hard. Well, it's hard because there's no incentives on the sides of the venues to book a guy like me. Unfortunately, I mean, like, and now I've been, and for your listeners, it's like I'm doing 150 shows a year, but I tour full time. I book all my shows. Like, I do make a living doing this, so like
Yeah.
I'm doing pretty well, and I'm at a point where like not just Austin, but let's say all over Texas, all of New Mexico, all over Colorado, kind of all over the Southeast and a lot of the Midwest. I do have fans and people that come to my shows because I've built that brick by brick. So now I know that there's might be 200 people that'll come see us in, New Orleans or something.
Yeah.
Now, the issue is like, obviously, this is all silly. I've spent 5 years doing that. This is a thing where we could have been playing the good venue from the get-go, and now we'd have 1,000 people seeing us.
Right.
So it's like, it's frustrating. The issue is there's no incentives on the sides of, and I don't mean to get too into like music business, whatever. So I'll
Yeah.
try to be, but it's like, if a venue can have an artist that's guaranteed to bring 1,000 people, why would they ever book somebody who doesn't have an established guarantee?
Right.
And the real answer is because there used to be a time when you would want to capitalize on new talent that was excellent. So
Yeah.
it's like if Elvis is coming through for the first time, or if Jerry Lee Lewis, these are old examples, or even if Nirvana's coming through and people are talking about how good they are, you'd want to bring them in because it's exciting. But
Yeah.
now what's happened is the industry has become backwards looking.
Yeah.
So even for everything, right? If I want to get on radio, they'll go, well, how many Spotify plays do you want? Have if I want to get on Spotify playlists, they go, well, how many social media followers do you have? So no one wants to take it. It used to be like, oh my God, this guy's new. Bring in the new. He's new. It's like newness is a virtue, but newness has become a risk, and everyone's so afraid. And also, the venues don't cover themselves in glory because generally they don't want to promote. They don't want to market. So
Mhm.
if they want someone to show up that's on tour, that's going to bring them a fan base, and all the venue has to do is open their doors. And then they're going to charge the band for the sound guy. They're going to take 20% of their ticket sales. They're going to take a merch cut. They're not going to do anything, and the band is going to fill the room and make them all the money.
Yeah.
That's a really good deal for the venue. Unfortunately, what happens is you end up you're going to book, I don't know, okay, let's book Josh Abbott band again, right? And that's not a knock on him. It's the fact that Josh is established. He's a safe bet. He's got 20 years of touring.
Hmm.
Why, if you're just a finance person, you're going to say yes to that. Now, if
Hmm.
you like talent and things that are interesting and new, you would want to bet on something else. But that's not a lot of. Generally, the conversation is just about established money already. So it's hard.
When did we become so afraid of being cool and wanting things that are cool? Like
And
when did
taking
that
risk, right? Taking risk.
Yeah.
This is a big
Yeah.
conversation, and this is a thing. We'll hang out and talk about it some because I think it's
Yeah.
actually. I was noticing this. I was playing a show in Waco the other night. We did like a several show run last week,
Hmm.
and I was noticing that Waco, this venue, they would book the bands for like a 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock slot on a Saturday, and then they would switch it over to karaoke from 11 to 2 in the morning. So the primetime bar slot, they had the bands opening for the karaoke, and I thought it was so interesting. They
Wow.
were so afraid of bands, and people are so afraid of something they don't know that they're going to bring up drunk people to sing for free in a packed room, and that's going to be the draw. And these people are all singing songs, right, that are 50 years old, 40 years old, and it's like, oh my God, you have all these 22-year-olds that are there singing, pour some sugar on me, and it's like, wow, this is crazy. These are people that should be seeing bands, and it's all reversed. So the
Yeah.
culture's become so backwards looking
Hmm.
that even the venues, even the young people are now being positioned to where they'll say yes to karaoke. They'll say no to go to see bands. And you're like, that's weird.
Yeah.
That's weird. Like that's a cultural. This is a culture that's. I mean, it's a declining entertainment culture, and it's something that has to be fixed because that's a real problem. Is what I think. So
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. Especially, my kind of old lady brain is going back to the 70s and the 80s, especially the 80s, because that's
yeah,
like my prime, and 90s.
you're in
Where
your prime
yeah,
now. What are you talking about? You're in your prime, right?
I am in my prime.
Look at you. Look at you. None of this. None of
But
this.
like
Anyway.
I remember, I mean, yeah, it was so different. And
The attitude of young people too,
yeah,
probably, right?
yeah, yeah.
hmm I wonder if it's the internet in the sense that I was thinking about this with dating, because like I'm single and dating in Austin. I was just thinking how strange it is. Like there's so much, and I'm not on the apps, but I was thinking like the dating apps, just like having reviews for restaurants, just like having all these things, it creates a curated kind of experience where people are getting a very safe bet. And even think about all
Mhm.
the movies, they're all sequels, right? All the movies are sequels. It's all like Harry Potter 15 or whatever it is. Right. But it's like it's the same. It's everywhere culturally. You see it in the dating, you see it in the way people go out to food, right? You don't want to go to a food place unless you read a review about it and people tell you it's good. It's the same with bands. And so I think that there's just become this fear of newness and there's like a cynicism culturally. And I mean, maybe that's one reason I try to go kick ass on stage is because I want to shake people out of that and be like, no, you
Yeah,
like new things. You've heard a lot of crap, but this is good. So I
yeah,
think it's just this ability that young people have to curate their experiences in all aspects Right on Instagram, you can choose the accounts you follow. You can choose the news you get to see. You can choose the art you get to see. You're never confronted with something that's different. And I think that the different, the new, it scares young people, and they've become fraidy cats in a lot of ways. And it's you see
Yeah.
it in the fact that they'll show up for karaoke and not to go see a band. Is what I think.
Yeah.
That's a lot. Sorry, there's a lot of I
No,
said, but
I
that's
think
yeah,
it's important actually. I think it's important to spend a few minutes talking about that stuff because
yeah,
it's all the stuff that I think about a lot and I don't ever really get it articulated in a conversation. So that's
sure,
helpful for my brain because I think you're spot on, and unfortunately, that's kind of where it's at. Back to
yeah,
you and what you're doing. So I listened to some new music that you have not
sure.
put out today, and I listened to it front to back, put my earphones in and closed my eyes
Oh, you're so sweet.
and listened
Thank
to
you.
it the way that you wanted me to.
Sure.
and
Yeah,
and what I was telling you before we started tonight was that it was different. Um,
yeah,
and not a huge departure. It's definitely still on brand. It's not a bad thing or anything like that. But there is some different that I'm having a hard time articulating. This album that again isn't out yet. What
sure.
what was different for you in the process of making it?
A lot of things. Thanks for listening to it. I haven't listened to it in a long time, so I'll give it a listen
It's
to it
really good.
sometime.
You should listen.
Gosh, you're sweet. And well, okay, it's just mechanical things and there's emotional things.
Hmm.
Mechanically, I wanted to make every song have a melodic hook with instruments and with vocals.
Hmm.
Every song has that. And this is, I think, this sounds very intuitive. This sounds like a no duh. But when you first start making songs, you kind of just play it and you go, oh, it goes like this, whatever, right? And you play it and you
Hmm.
sing, and that's the song. And then
Hmm.
as you make more songs, you go, oh, it should probably have a like ba da 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 ba da 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 da. Oh, that's the hook. Okay, let's do
Yeah.
that again. And then you're like, well, we should probably do that all the time, right? Because you listen to, a Beatles song, you listen to whatever, right? A Lady Gaga song. There's a thing that makes the song sound like it, and you know it within 5 seconds.
Yep.
So that becomes your prompt is like, okay, this is cool, but how do we make each song sound like that song as soon as you start the song?
Hmm.
And that's the prompt. So that's one thing that's different in this album is every aspect of it is like that, and that's called making a real album. I think is part of it. And
Hmm.
then the second one was, I mean, I don't know if you probably know, I had a stroke 2 years ago. You know
I did,
this?
I
Am I
did know
dropping a
that.
bomb on you in a conversation? Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had a stroke and I almost died. So
Shit, Nick.
I, I'm okay.
Okay.
But I had like which I should write about this. I had a hole in my heart. It was like a little tiny thing. It's called a PFO, which I don't know what that stands for, but I think it's a hole in your heart with the ventricles, and it makes it more likely to get blood clots in your brain. So I woke up one morning with like a blood clot in my brain, and I had to go to the hospital and all this crazy stuff. And I was in the hospital and I had to get surgery, and they patched my heart. So for your listeners, if they're still, listening to me talk, I'm okay,
Good.
but I had to get surgery, and basically I had this time. I had like horrible vertigo is how I got this stroke. And so for like 2 months I was like at my sister's house, literally like learning how to walk as my brain rewired itself.
Yeah.
And then I was booking shows and touring, trying to book shows while everything was like dizzy. Like everything was like
Yeah.
anyway, so what happened was a lot of these songs I wrote while hanging out and recovering from a stroke. And that's probably why they sound different, because there was something like that would probably do it.
That would probably
So,
do it.
so I just know it made me a lot more ponderous about things. And I think these songs, there's a lot more reflection than
Mhm.
typically my older songs are more like, go, go, go. And this is more,
Yeah.
thinking about life a bit more. So a song like Promised Land,
Hmm.
it's like a song about being on a great journey. And I have this whole thing right now where I didn't know if like God was trying to kill me or God was proud of me. And that's a big thought to have. And so you start wrestling with these ideas and like, okay, what's my purpose? And is this music thing going to take me somewhere? Does it matter? Does anyone care? Does it matter if
Yeah.
I die? Right? All this stuff. And
Yeah.
so you start having real songs because you're trying to articulate that. So I think it's more introspective because I had a close call with death, and then melodically, it's a lot better because I wanted to do a better job of putting it together in a real way. So that's kind of the
Yeah.
answer, if that helps answer
That
it.
fits, like that completely tracks as I'm
Totally.
listening to you talk and I'm remembering what I was feeling, a sense of like that it was the same brush that went along every, like if you took your songs and lined them up, I felt like the
Yeah.
brush just went across all of them, if that makes
Thank you.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a bit more ponderous. It's a bit more melancholy. I mean, it's still an upbeat album, but it's got more sadness in it than I think I used to write with. They're more like life is hard kind of writing, you know, like that song Somebody Tonight. That's
Mhm.
a song about being on the road a lot and this idea of like coming to terms with what life is and being like, you know, I don't need everything, but I just want one win. Like, can I just get a win? And like, I just want to be somebody tonight. I don't need it all the time. I don't need special all the time. But you know, leave the light on for me. I'm figuring myself out. And like, I just want to be somebody, you know, one time. And so it's kind of this idea of making peace with the fact that life is hard, I think is a lot of what the album is about. Yeah.
I think that it felt you come across as someone with a lot of energy, and that you're doing a lot and accomplishing a lot, and like just sort of like, wow, how does he do it? It felt really good in my head to feel you come down a little bit on this album. It felt good for like Nik to just like, I don't know how to say it in, and I mean it in the
Well, I
nicest
think, no, no,
sweetest
I
way.
think,
It just felt like, because you're so entertaining, and you're so out there. You're really, what it is, Nik, is you're giving and giving and giving and giving. And then when I laid down and I listened to this, it kind of felt like Nik got to relax making this in a way, or that you got to
yeah.
receive maybe through writing this. It felt like I just want
It,
you to be, I want you to get the payoff because you're working so hard. And so I feel this thing like I just want Nik to also get, I want Nik to have a win. You know what I mean? I want everyone to
sure.
know about you guys, and I want you to get what you
Thanks.
want, because I see how much you guys give in a show, you know?
Sure.
Yeah.
It's a great way. I mean, I think, and yeah, I think a lot of this album was me coming to terms with like, I don't need to impress people. And I felt like this was more of that kind of stuff. I was trying to write songs that were just more about like, hey, here I am. Here, this is me, who I am right now. And I'm not, it's a bit more lived in, you know, and it's
Yeah.
not, I'm not trying to show off. I'm not trying to impress you. I'm trying to write about life and kind of what I feel about things and what I'm observing as I tour. And it's a hard journey, but it's interesting. And there's a lot of love in it, but a lot of sorrow in it too. And I think that it's a different kind of energy. So yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love the order of the songs. I think you ordered them beautifully. It does take you on a bit of an adventure, and then Promised Land is that last song, feels like the perfect punctuation on the
Thanks.
fruit. Yeah, it really feels
It's
really
good to
good.
hear you talk about it because I haven't played these songs in a long time, and like I, you know, when you don't put an album out, you kind of start to doubt it, and you're like, ah, is
Mm.
Promised Land good? Is that a good song? And it's like I thought it was really good, and I wrote it, you know. So I really like it. It sounds like the kind of song that I think like the Black Pumas could do or something. Like I wanted to write like an intense kind of like soul, but a big
Mhm.
kind of stadium song. It's just like
Yeah.
what we're talking about. It's hard to play those songs in a bar of people where you have to win people over with energy very quickly.
Right, right.
Those are hard because these are real songs. This is like a
Yes.
hey, you actually have to pay attention because there's something here that's it's not all candy. And I
Right.
think that that's what's hard about this album for me. Like when in my live set, I probably only play three or four of those songs, just
Mm.
because like it's really hard to get unless you have an audience that's super locked in. It's really hard to get them to listen to a song like Promised Land because
Hmm.
I think that's a song that's one of my best written songs.
It's beautiful.
That's not the same as like my older stuff like Gimme Time, which is like piano and fun and you can dance to it really quick and people go, I love that. So it's just different. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for digging into it.
Oh, yeah, I love it. It's one of my favorite things to do, is to listen to something I've never heard before and just really
Yeah.
be in that moment. Nothing else. No phone, no nothing.
Sure.
Just what you've created. So I
That's
highly
cool.
recommend people to do that. Yeah.
It's on my website for people that are hanging out. They just
It
go to
is.
nickparr.com.
It's
So
there.
it's there. You can listen to it. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I was like, maybe I'll release it as singles. I don't know what I'm gonna do with it. So because I'm already in the works of making a new album right now. Like that's what I was doing when, you know, and I'm making all this new stuff and I'm like, I don't know what we'll do with it. But I hearing you talk about it helps. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. What else? What's a typical day like for you? Because again, you do seem to have a lot of energy. I know you drink a lot of coffee, but
Sure.
how do you like to structure your day? You know.
Tasks. I try to get tasks done, but I don't really have much of a schedule because I'm doing this full time, right? So it's more like, all right, let's try to be up by 10 or 10:30 and respect ourselves and at least get to a coffee shop by like 11 and start sending emails. But
Mhm.
basically, I have to be, I'm my agent, I'm the social media guy, I'm paying the band, I'm booking the shows, I'm booking the hotels, I'm doing all that stuff. And
Wow.
then there's a point, and then I'm like coordinating with other bands if I'm touring, which is mostly touring. Hey, band in Lafayette, can you open for us here? And we'll open for you in New Orleans. Okay. And then you take that and you go to the New Orleans venue. Hey, New Orleans venue, here's the dates that I have and here's the bands. And then they don't have a response. So you have to call them and you have to make reminders to call them. And I'm doing that in 150 different places, like literally 150, right? Because it's all touring. So you're going, okay, so you go, okay, we got Biloxi said yes to this show, but I need to get over to Hattiesburg, and I know somebody there, and then we need to go over to Fayetteville. Okay, I know a band in Fayetteville. Okay, so it's all this, and I'm setting reminders to myself. So like the first 4 hours of what I do is all that, and I kind of just carve out. I'm gonna sit here until I'm sick of coffee, and until I'm really really hungry, and until
Hmm.
I can't do this anymore. And I'm gonna make calls, and I'm gonna do this stuff, and I'm gonna try to book shows. And then by about 4 or 5 in the afternoon, I go, okay, I'm really hungry and I hate this now. I need to eat. And then I go work out and then I get into a creative mode where it's like, oh, creatively, what do I have to do? Am I working on artwork? Am I drawing today?
Hmm.
Am I am I hashing out this song? Do I have a demo of a song that I need to listen back to and go walk around outside and think about it? Am I doing new songwriting where I go walk and I just take a notepad and you carve out time for that? And it's like, all right, now it's 8 o'clock. I need to go work out or whatever. I'm going to eat, work out, okay. And then it's kind of like, am I bringing my saxophone to a club to go see a band and hang out and play on stage? Am I back to the coffee shop and working more? But basically, my day goes from about 10 a.m. to about 1 in the morning, and it's all just it's work. And so the only way it works is you just don't have leisure time, essentially, and you just work 10 hours a day or 12, and you can make it work. And then your audience is gonna for your audience, like I'm cool, I have friends, okay, I promise, I have a life a little bit, but it's basically like there's tasks that have to get done. If there's a show that's booked, then it has to get promoted, right? So it's like, okay, is there a poster made? Who's making the poster? Has it been put up? Is there social media ads running? Have I set that up? What are our ticket sales like? Have the other bands shared the post? When is load in? Has the advance been said? Do they have our marketing assets? Do they have it? So it's just checklists.
Yeah.
And then there's a time when you go, I can't do any more checklists. I have to be creative.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you do that. And then, okay, I can't be creative anymore. I need to go see people. All right, well, I'll go see the West Texas Exiles, the Continental Club. That sounds great. I
Yeah.
like them. So then I'll go see friends. And so you just kind of try to structure it based on tasks. And also, I remember I heard a good podcast with a famous comedian where he was saying, if you have things that have to get done, you just have to pretend like other things don't exist. So
Hmm.
it's like, if it's album time, like right now, I'm in pre-production for an album. So it's like, all right, albums are all that exist right now. All the life stuff doesn't matter, right? The garbage is gonna sit there, the taxes are gonna sit there, everything else doesn't matter because this is what matters for the next 3 weeks. 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So a lot of that. And then usually I'm juggling this while also playing 3 or 4 shows a week on the road. So I work and then I get in the car and I drive to Dallas. And then we go to Tulsa. And then we go to Kansas City. And then we go to this. And then you do all that. And then I wake up in the morning at the hotel and I work on booking shows. And then I work out and then I go to the show. And so it's just I like the pace
Busy.
of it. It's a
Yeah.
lot. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I hope it'll change, but that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah. I hope
Well,
that was a good answer. I don't know if that was useful, but that's what the day
it
is like.
is. No, it is. I
Yeah.
think it's important for people to get a really realistic glimpse on what it's like to do what you do. And,
Yeah, yeah.
these people that for us, it's just one night, we go, we see, we hang out, we're entertained, we dance, we clap,
Sure.
we sing,
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
we
yeah,
go
yeah.
home. And one of the reasons why I do this show is because I think it is so important for people to understand the humanity of artists and
Yeah,
creators
yeah, yeah.
and the reality of what goes into being, Nik Parr. And Yeah,
Thanks.
I mean, it's important and it's valuable. And I mean, I'm listening to you talk and I'm feeling like I can identify, and I'm feeling like, wow, this is
Sure.
where I would be challenged. And wow, I didn't realize that. And I wonder how he keeps what tool does he use to keep organized? It's like there's just
Sure.
a lot of really good universal stuff in there. So
Well, I think, and I try to like, get inspiration from different kinds of one thing and for musicians and creatives, I would recommend like getting outside of, just being around musicians or just listening to musicians or just listening to artists. So like I think a lot about like athletes and how a good athlete has to kind of prioritize their time and manage what they're doing, or like a
mhm.
politician, a good politician or a good this or that. You're having to do all these things, or like an entrepreneur kind of person.
Mhm.
It's like how you manage that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, oh, but also like like with sports, which like whatever sports, but there's like this idea, like a lot of times a good player, it does the things that nobody else wants to do, and they do it well. Like if
Hmm.
a good basketball player, maybe they're really good at rebounds and defense, and they run really hard and they try hard.
Hmm.
That kind of guy really matters, and I think that I try to take that mentality to what I do. And I was like, because for a long, believe it or not, there was a time 5 or 6 years ago where I had a really hard time getting booked for shows, and no one would book me, and it was just tough, and I couldn't get started, and I was very frustrated. At some point, I was like, well, if I can't get an agent to help me, then I'll just be a better agent than all the agents. I'll just learn how to be an agent. If I can't get, venues to work with me, I'll just get better at talking to venues than anybody else.
Yeah.
If I can't get someone to help me with social media, I'll get better at social media. If I can't, if I like being a band leader is kind of unglamorous and hard. You're coordinating people's schedules. It
Yeah.
sucks. And you're paying with me. Like I'm paying my band to tour with me. Okay. Or like with merch. I was like, all right, I'll be the best at merch. I'll make my art and I'll just put it on t-shirts, and I'll be the best at a merch table. And so it was like all these weird things. Where it's like, I'm going to be the best at all this stuff that nobody wants to do. And I
Yeah.
think that that's going to make it a lot easier to make the creative thing push forward, because I'm just gonna all that other stuff. I'm gonna champion being good at being a janitor, right? Like I'm gonna bring my band water, whatever. Like I'll bring them bottled water. I'll book the hotels. I'll make sure that like fine, I'll do it. And I think once I could let go and be like, I'm just gonna do everything that nobody wants to do, it's really helped me have a good career.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah,
you are doing it, and I'm having so much fun, getting to be in the front row and watching you do it, and getting to
yeah,
listen to what comes out. So I really
yeah.
appreciate the fact that you're doing it, and I wish you just the most success, whatever you define that as, and I'm cheering for you for sure.
Well, I'll tell you what I define it as, which is I want to be on a career path like the Black Pumas or like the Revivalists or like Nathaniel Rateliff.
Yep.
And I'm not gonna. I don't want to settle on less than that. And which that's like people tell you to be happy, and I'm happy doing what I'm doing, and I'm doing well. But that's the kind of success that I want, and that's
Yeah.
how I'm trying to position us. And I think I'm uncompromising in that, because I think this is really good stuff. And it's not about me, I think a lot of people think whatever. It's like I do the music because I love the audiences I play for, and I think it's important for people to have good music. I think it matters, right?
Hmm.
Like I think it
Yeah.
matters, just like it matters to you. Like you're doing this for a reason,
Yeah.
and it's like it's cool to have a show, but you're doing it because you care about music and you believe it's essential. That's how
Hmm.
I look at it. And I'm like, well, I think our culture has a lot of problems, and I think if you can have something that inspires young people and is positive and matters, and
Hmm.
something that's important for them, and made something made with love, something made well, I think
Yeah.
that gives people a better life, and I think it's my purpose to make that. And so, anyway, I feel uncompromising in the success that I want to have. I want to have big success because I think it matters for people to hear it. So,
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
I think that you will, and I'll be the first person in line
you're
cheering.
already here. Yeah, you're here right now, so it's great.
Yeah,
Yeah, cool.
awesome. Well, when are you playing? So this show is taping on just a couple days before Christmas, so you'll be out
Sure,
this coming Tuesday. This will be our little Christmas episode.
nice.
So
Okay,
are you playing around Austin anytime
I
soon?
have December 30th at the
That's right.
Continental Club. It's a
Yes, you
Saturday.
do. I
It's a
have it on
big
my
boy show.
calendar.
Come see that one. That'll be a really good one.
Yeah,
December 30th at the Continental Club, and then the next night I'll be in Houston at the Continental Club there. So two back-to-back
look at
Continental Club shows.
you.
What,
Awesome.
what can you do?
Guys, audience, if you are still listening, you have got to go on December 30th and put on your dancing shoes and get ready to clap and stand up.
Sure.
And it's the best. It's the best.
Yeah.
Love it.
Thank you.
You're going to
Thank
pack
you.
it.
I
Yeah.
will. It'll be a good show. Yeah. We're a good band. It'll be good.
You are a good band. I love that. Nik, thank
So
you so much for coming on. It's so good to see you. And
sure, it's good to
yeah,
see you
I
too.
can't wait to see you on the 30th. That
Thank
does
you.
it for this episode of the Austin Downbeat with Nik Parr and the Selfless
We did it.
Lovers. Follow
We
them,
did it.
subscribe, do it all, and
Thank
go
you.
see a show. All right. See you next time. Bye.